In comparison, something becomes this and that. So this goodness is always in comparison with somebody. We have made somebody bad in our mind. From that we conclude we are good. We don't need good people. We need joyful and sensible human beings on this planet. And have you seen, when you're joyful, you're not in conflict with anybody, and you do the most wonderful things when you're happy.
I remember you once saying, there aren't good or bad people, there's only joyful and miserable people. And this allows
Yes,
us
it
to
is.
have so much compassion.
Half hour, you're going to meet a man who has a devoted following across India and indeed around the world. While yoga and meditation are at the core of his teachings to promote individual growth, the work of the foundation covers conservation, education and health. And you'll find him astonishingly pragmatic on a range of very modern-day problems. Let's meet Sadhguru.
We have the necessary resource, we have the necessary capability, we have the necessary technology to address every human problem on the planet. But the only thing that is missing is consciousness. We started a mass campaign and 6 years I spent planting trees in people's heads. That's the most difficult terrain, believe me. And now in the last 6 years we've been transplanting it, and that's happening much more easily.
Action for Rural Rejuvenation is mainly aimed at rejuvenating the human spirit.
This is an incredible movement that is started in Tamil Nadu. We want to see that this happens to the whole country and revitalizing rural societies.
English and computer skills are very essential to make these children come out of the hopeless economic and social pit they are in. Whatever the nature of your business, ultimately, it is all about human well-being.
Isha Foundation, a non-religious, non-profit public service organisation headquartered in southern India.
We've engineered the outside world in so many ways, but we've done nothing about this one.
If you want to know well-being, in is the only way out.
An incredible rally starting from Kanyakumari, reaching up to the Himalayas with the sole purpose of rejuvenating India's rivers.
We are also launching another campaign called Kaveri Calling. These 83,000 square kilometers of Kaveri Basin, we want to bring it back, at least 1/3 of it, back into some kind of green cover. We are launching a campaign called Youth and Truth in the month of September. Youth and Truth, unplug with Sadhguru, ask whatever you want.
This precious life, where are you going to invest it? What is it that will be worthwhile today and worthwhile after 50 years? You invest your life into that.
You have to describe yourself in one word.
Would you consider wildlife as 2 words or 1 word?
Namaskaram, Sahara.
Namaste, welcome Sadhguru
Oh,
to the
Sahara
ISL
Rose,
podcast.
you're a desert blossom, huh?
Thank you so much. Honored to
You
be…
know, I named our monthly magazine as Forest Flower. You gone a step ahead and said Desert Rose.
Exactly, it's the rose blossoming even in the desert where there is no water, continuing life. Well, we're so grateful to have you here on the podcast. You've been such an influence in my life and the lives of so many. And the first question I'd love to ask you is, what makes you your highest self?
Well, I don't know what is high and low really within me. I am at full throttle all the time, so there is no high and low. I don't see one thing more important than the other. I don't see one thing as sacred, another thing as filthy. I don't see one thing as high, another thing as low. So, all these highs and lows are outside in the world. Within myself, I have leveled it all out at a peak.
Yeah, that integration of all parts of you and seeing all parts of them as sacred.
I mean, I don't even have to call it sacred or filthy, it's just what it is.
Mhm. Well, right now I feel so many of us are struggling with that. We're feeling like every time we turn on the news or go on social media, there's so much cruelty, violence, injustice in the world, and it can feel very overwhelming and create a lot of anxiety. So, what is your advice for those of us who we seek to be aware, but sometimes may lose ourselves in the spiral of, another catastrophe happening in another part of the world?
See, talking about violence and cruelty and catastrophes, well, in that sense, we as a generation of people are very, very fortunate. Actually, we have minimum levels of violence. World is far less violent than ever before in the history of humanity. If you look back on the history of this world, the level of violence that people have faced, particularly different groups of people have faced this, but particularly women have had it so bad for centuries or millennia. This is probably the first or second generation which is beginning to find some freedom of expression and some sense of sanity in their lives, really. So I don't think we should complain about it. It's better than ever before. Well, still a lot of things need to be fixed, we have to strive for that. But that's not an overnight job, that needs culturing of a society which takes a certain amount of time. Certain fundamentals in the society uh, have been very skewed and wrongly perceived. So trying to fix the surface without fixing the basis is an effort that's going on everywhere, but it will not yield results, it will yield temporary results, but it will not yield a long-term result. So, do we have the courage to address the fundamentals of our life? That's what inner engineering is about. Do you have the courage to address the very fundamentals of who you are? If you address that only, genuinely well-being will come to yourself and to everyone. So people who are seeking well-being for everyone, first thing is they should look at themselves. If you do not know how to be well, how will you create well-being for everybody else? If you do not know how to be peaceful, how will you make the world peaceful? If you do not know how to be joyful, how will you make somebody else joyful? This is not going to work. So right now, this is the effort that's going on. Lot of people who are deeply disturbed within themselves are trying to create world peace. Miserable people are talking about joy. No, it's very, very important that you must be the first subject. Can you make this peaceful, joyful and genuinely well? If you make this way, then how to impact the world in similar way will come to you. How much impact you create depends from person to person and also in the times in which we exist, all right? Suppose let us say, this was 1942, you and me can talk as much as we want, people who are shooting each other and bombing each other will go on doing it, all right? So, it is also the times in which we exist. What we can do in the world is not largely ours, it is also a consequence of the times. So, we should not misunderstand or we should not exaggerate small things that we see. I am not saying one person being killed is a small thing, it's a terrible thing. It's as good as killing 1,000,000 people, it is not any different. But it is extremely important that we understand that peace or well-being doesn't just happen with a magic wand. It is a generational striving that could deliver us there.
Thank you so much for expressing that. And I think what many of us struggle with is a feeling of guilt, a feeling of, oh, well, if I'm not aware and deeply in the battle, then I'm not doing enough. So what is your take on this? And there's this word, I don't know if you've heard it before, spiritual bypass. It's a word that people are saying that they're saying, oh, you're bypassing over the realities of the world by saying, oh, we're all one, or using spiritual terminology. So I think a lot of us struggle with that because we want to connect to that unity consciousness, but we also don't want to be considered bypassing over realities.
Sarah, if you're not doing enough, I got a lot of work for you.
Okay. I'm in.
I got so much work for everybody if they're willing to do it. And why should any human being be doing less than what they can do? See, in our lives, if we do not do what we cannot do, no problem. But if we do not do what we can do, we are a disastrous life. It's my wish that either you or anybody else should not become such a disaster. Everything that we can do must happen. About spiritual bypass, that's a good term because people think spirituality means it's of the other world. Spirituality is not of the other world, it is the core of this world. If you live on the surface, you are materialistic. If you touch a deeper core, you are spiritual. You have not seen spirits floating in the clouds, though they've been talking about it for a long time. If at all, if there is any spirit, it's within you. So you can either touch your skin or a little deeper, or a little deeper, or the very core. So if you touch the very core of who you are, this is spiritual process. How will it ever be a bypass? It will not be a bypass, it will be a deeper involvement. If you're truly spiritual, you will show much deeper involvement with everything around you than those who are not spiritual, because those who are materialistic are always calculating, if I do this, what will I get? So, a spiritual person means you have transcended one calculation, what will I get is gone from you. Because what will I get is gone from you, your life is in a certain state of abandon. Out of this, you're in a certain state of joy and blissfulness. This does not mean you will bypass the world. Actually, if you're joyful and blissful by your own nature, you're willing to put yourself in any given situation because anyway it is not going to torture you or trouble you. I must tell you this, when everybody was talking about going to heaven and those kind of things, Gautama the Buddha said, what will I do in heaven? Everybody seems to be well there, what will I do there? I will go to hell. They asked, why? He said, well, people seem to be suffering, let me go and do something there. Anyway, I cannot suffer, I've made myself like this, that anyway I'm joyful, so I will go to hell. Even today, Buddhist scriptures refer to Buddha is in the lower world, not in the upper world. This is absolute freedom. So, if you are genuinely spiritual, if you have attained to a certain state of equanimity and blissfulness within you, then you will not shun any activity, nor will you try to shirk anything, because wherever you go, your well-being is assured. When your well-being is assured, you can get into the worst possible situations and do the best that you can do. So spirituality is definitely not a bypass. Spirituality is a profound involvement with life.
I love that so much. And really, when you're joyful, you become sovereign. You become less affected by what's happening in the outside world, that you can be in hell, you can be in the suffering because you're not affected by it. And I think it's changing that perception that joyful is leaving this human experience, but rather seeing it as a deep immersion in the core of who we truly are underneath it all.
So this is the biggest mistake that humanity has made. We've always been trying to produce good people. So these good people are the biggest problem on the planet, because a good Christian is fighting a good Muslim, a good Indian is fighting a good Pakistani, a good American is fighting just about anybody.
Each other.
The more good you think you are, the more in conflict you are. We don't need good people, because goodness comes from an assumption that I am better than you. If I am good, how do I become good? Oh, looking at you, you are not okay, she's not okay, he's not okay, that one is not okay, this one is not okay. compared to all these people, I am a good man. Without comparison, if you are see, you are a desert flower, all right? If you are the only blossom, are you a beautiful flower or an ugly flower? There is no such thing, because there is only one. Only in comparison, something becomes this and that. So this goodness is always in comparison with somebody. We have made somebody bad in our mind. From that we conclude we are good. We don't need good people. We need joyful and sensible human beings on this planet. And have you seen, when you're joyful, you're not in conflict with anybody, and you do the most wonderful things when you're happy.
I remember you once saying, there aren't good or bad people, there's only joyful and miserable people. And this allows
Yes,
us
it
to
is.
have so much compassion, and I think that right now, a lot of the terminology is the darkness is taking over. So what is your perception on, is there a darkness out there, or is this just trauma that actually also thinks it's doing the best it can?
Oh, I wish darkness takes over. See, I'm dark-skinned. So what's wrong with me? You think something dark means it's something wrong? No, no, this is a racist idea. Dark is not bad, dark is good. Isn't it the darkness of the night which gives you relief from the relentless light of the day? So, this idea that darkness is something negative, something bad, is essentially coming from a certain color of the skin. I think we should keep it aside. Darkness is good. Darkness is coming means maybe they were saying this in the evening. Yes, definitely it's coming. Early morning you can say light is coming.
Yes, yeah, I definitely see that, of how that can perpetrate colorism. And I think a lot of us have grown up with like religious programming that creates this duality and the separation of, you're either a good guy or a bad guy, you're fighting for the light or you're fighting for the quote unquote darkness. So for those of us who want to elevate consciousness, do you think it's important to even be aware of this quote unquote darkness, badness, etc., or just sort of ignore it and go on in creating the kind of world you want to be a part of?
See, if you want to make judgments on people or situations or communities or nations or races or religions, well, everybody is evil except you. All right? So never get into that business. There is nobody here who is perfect. There is nobody here who's 100% horrible, all right? Everybody is oscillating between being horrible and wonderful. People are going between this. It's just that on which side your pendulum swings too much is the question. So, some will do horrible things in the name of goodness, some will simply do it. Some will do wonderful things simply out of their joy, some will do it because of something that they believe in. So, people who believe they are good, as good nations, as good religions, as good, morally good people, they have done the most cruel things on the planet. I want you to know, the most horrendous things on the planet have been done by people who believed they are doing a great thing. Even now there's a whole lot of people who will do horrible things and they believe they are doing God's own work, all right? So, we don't need such judgments. What we need is, we want our humanity to overflow. We are too much invested in a world that we have not seen. It's time you invest in a world that you know, the world that you experience, the world in which you exist, and see how to make this wonderful. This whole idea that there is a heaven to go to, heaven means it's a better place than this. This idea that there is a better place than this is the most criminal idea on the planet. This is the place. This is the most wonderful place because you have not seen any other place. Rest is all just sales talk. Nobody has seen a better world than this. What is the proof? Do you have any proof to tell me that you are not already in heaven and messing it up? You're in heaven and making a mess out of it. This earth is a heavenly body. If you go out in the space and look at this is a heavenly body floating in the Milky Way. What more do you want? It's just that those who are joyful, those who are miserable and messing it up are messing it up. But the number of people messing it up, when they increase, they will make sure they spread misery and disaster all around them, either in the form of wars, or in the form of strife, or in the form of ecological degradation, in so many different ways. So it is important we create joyful and sensible human beings. We don't need righteous human beings. We don't need people who believe that God is talking to them and they will do the right things at any cost. Well, they will want to transform you or they want to fix you. What if you don't want to be fixed? I'm saying, leave them alone. I'm saying I have worked with, prison inmates for the last 23, 24 years. I worked and I've spent time with the worst kind of criminals. I'm saying they have come for horrible crimes, murder, rape, many double murders, triple murders kind of people. But when they are with me, they are such wonderful guys, absolutely wonderful guys. But if you meet them somewhere when they are not happy, they can do terrible things. So the best insurance that you have for humanity is, we need to create a joyful world. If there are joyful human beings, the chances of them doing ugly things is not gone, but is greatly depleted.
Mm. I so agree wholeheartedly with you, and thank you for sharing that example of even someone who in one miserable situation could commit a murder and another could be a humorous conversation. It allows us to have compassion towards everyone and their choices, and not create an overarching label that sticks with them forever based off of one momentary experience. So right now, a lot of us are desiring, we're feeling that we're meant, I use this with quotes again because not everyone feels this, but meant to live in community. And many of us are right now thinking, what does this look like? Does this look like a more traditional method that we all buy land and grow our food together? Or is it a more modern way of finding homes in the same neighborhood? I think what a lot of us struggle with is we've grown up in this Western mindset that we've had, our Amazons delivered to us and everything that we've wanted, that it may be difficult to transition to a collective-based community. So what are your thoughts on people moving back to living in community, and how can this be done?
What is the word you use? What community? You said something.
Conscious.
I didn't get that word.
Conscious
Okay.
Community, yes.
Okay. So, I think it's very, very important, this individualistic existence. See, for example, in India, just a generation or 2 generations ago, I have been in families, not my family, but I've been a guest in families where there were over 400 people in one home, large home. And a bunch of kids all over, whoever is best in handling kids, they are handling them. Till they're 10, 12, they don't even know who their biological parents are, because they are just brought up by a few women who are good with the children. Many mothers and fathers may not be good with the children, but there is always an aunt who is good with the children. So she brings up all the children and it's one rollicking situation. These things were possible just 2 generations ago. In the last generation, they dropped all those people, aunts and uncles and everybody we dropped. We said family means myself, my husband or wife, and my parents. Even the wife's parents are not really family, usually, unfortunately. So, from there, this generation has come, me and my wife or me and my husband is the only family. Parents are also not family, they cannot be with us, we can't stand them, and we're wondering if the children are our family or not because even we don't want them around anymore. I'm saying our sense of individuality is growing in a way that even I know a couple who've taken homes in the neighborhood where they're adjacent homes, but in the same home they cannot exist, it'll lead to divorce. So they live in 2 separate homes close by, and through the window they wave at each other, once in a way they meet, either you visit him or he visit you, something like that. And I'm saying we're coming to this place, we are becoming so individualistic, we simply cannot get along with anybody. That's where we are going. So is this a good trend? No, because after some time you cannot even get along with yourself. The number of suicides in 2020, for various reasons, but in one way or the other, when it happens in poorer nations, it may be due to economic reasons and other kinds of problems in war zones, in famine zones. People may take their life because they see their physical condition is hopeless, they can't do anything about it. But it is in well-to-do societies like United States, Japan, Europe, all these places, this is essentially because you're not even able to get along with yourself. Your own mind is such a big problem, your own emotions are such a big problem, and this is happening. So we need to understand this progression will lead to not a healthy society. So like here in Isha Yoga Center, we are over 5,000 people living together here. In United States, we are building a spiritual community not away from the world, as a part of the world. It's very important you don't make your community exclusive and something you think it's superior to the rest of the world. This will always bring it down. This is a mistake many communities have made. So we make sure our communities are very engaged with the outside world, very inclusive with the outside world. So we have over 20,000 acres in United States, in Tennessee. We are building a spiritual community where people, individual people, families, businesses can come and establish themselves there and be a part of a community which believes in human well-being. Human well-being starts with you, eating right, living right, breathing right, sitting right, standing right, doing the right kind of thoughts, doing the right kind of emotions. If you do this, a new possibility opens up, which is not something that we can, articulate, but a new possibility beyond all these things will open up. Physiologically and psychologically, we are equipped in a certain way compared to any other creature on this planet. But unfortunately, this capability, our ability to intellectualize, our ability to imagine things that may happen tomorrow, our ability to have a vivid sense of memory, all these things human beings are suffering. People are thinking they are suffering life, they are not suffering life, they are suffering their vivid sense of memory and a fantastic sense of imagination. That is why you can suffer what happened 10 years ago, or you can even suffer what may happen day after tomorrow already. So this is not suffering of life, this is suffering human faculties which have happened to us after millions of years of research and development. You can call this evolution, but essentially it's research and development from a single-celled amoeba to who you are right now. Just see how much development, how much sophistication has happened, and unfortunately we are suffering that. So it's very, very important that people coming together and either… see, whichever way, I'm not saying this is the best way. We say yoga ratova, bhoga ratova. It means either this way or that way, in pleasure or in discipline, in aloneness or in togetherness. Somehow bring that sense of equilibrium within yourself so that the dimensions which are beyond your physiological and psychological spheres becomes available to you. Your body and your mind should become a platform upon which you stand and touch the sky. Right now it's a morass, it's like a sinking sands, People are sinking into their own minds and bodies. Their bodies and their minds are keeping them busy for an entire lifetime. This is not the way you're supposed to be. This is a platform upon which you should stand and do something more significant.
Thank you for sharing all of that. And you're so right. I feel there's a higher level of expectation and also agitation in our society, that the reason why so many can't really get along with anyone, whether it's family members or even friends, is because I feel we're so used to having whatever we want when we want it, and then also prioritizing our career over connection. So it does take that rewiring and that reprogramming of, what do we really want in this lifetime? Do we want to be successful and alone, where everything and the temperature is exactly as we want, or do we want the joy of being in community?
Temperature will be exactly the way you want when you are in the undertaker's place, you know, they will keep the temperature minus something and it'll be right there.
Yeah,
When you're
exactly.
alive, when you're alive, you must brave every kind of temperature.
And I think it's that illusion of control that we have. If I'm alone, I can control everything. So for people who are struggling with that, yes, what advice do you have?
We need to understand. See, you and me are talking here because of technology. Where are you, Sarah?
Miami.
Okay. Look at you in Florida, I'm in southern India. You're near the ocean and I have a mountain blocking my ocean view. I am also close to the ocean, but I have a huge mountain between me and the mountain, between me and the ocean. Anyway, look at this, across probably, I don't know, maybe 12,000 kilometers, we are talking to each other because of technology. All this is fine, but the essential aspect of who we are is just this, that as human beings, when it comes to human experience, we want our experience to be as profound as possible. Somebody thinks it will become profound if they have lot of money and access to many things in the world, their life will become profound. Somebody thinks it will happen out of a love affair or a deep sense of love or relationship. Somebody else thinks it'll happen because of knowledge. Somebody thinks it'll happen when they hit the bottle. Somebody thinks it'll happen by popping some pills. Every one of them, one who is going to the temple, one who is going to the bar, both of them are seeking profoundness of experience, isn't it? This is all we are seeking, profoundness of experience. When it comes to activity, impactfulness of activity is important. When you do something, you want it to impact people, otherwise what is the point of activity? These are the only two things we are genuinely seeking, profoundness of experience, impactfulness of activity. Right now, our problem is, we are trying to make activity impactful without profoundness of experience. Because of this, activity is overly stressful. It is like you have raised the bar for your activity, but you have not elevated yourself. It is like you're on a racetrack with a old beat-up pickup truck, but you're on a Formula One track. Obviously, four wheels will go in four different directions. If you want to be on a Formula One track, you need to have that kind of a machine. So the most important thing is to elevate this constantly. The life that you are, not just becoming physically fit or mentally capable, the life that you are can be upgraded. If you are always upgrading the life that you are, activity will naturally upgrade itself. Instead of activity being a consequence of who we are making activity the basis of who we are. This is the fundamental mistake. First being, then doing, then having. But today in the world, even a 12-year-old or 15-year-old is dreaming what are the things they want to have. Because of that they do, and because of doing that they become. This is the fundamental upside-down way of handling, topsy-turvy way of handling life, which is causing so much distress and pain to human beings. Actually, when life is better organized than ever before, never before in the history of humanity, our survival was so well organized. I'm especially saying this as a woman. Just look back and see 500 years ago, if you were a woman, what are your difficulties? From simple personal difficulties to every kind. Just imagine all the things today where you are placed. This is true for a man and a woman, but I feel it's far more starkly real for a woman. Still many things have to change, that's a different thing. But as a generation of people, we are enjoying the highest level of comforts and conveniences, but we are at a high level of distress simply because we do not know how to handle our own faculties. And the technologies that we create, which are a tremendous empowerment, even they trouble us.
Absolutely. And I'd love to ask you about the technologies, because it feels like right now there's a crew of people who are seeking more merging with technology. So wanting to move towards, for example, Tesla recently released these robotic dogs that can go on street and almost act like policemen. And I think there's a natural expansion of technology that happens with expansion of consciousness. We can't prevent ourselves, but then there's another crew of people who are wanting to go off grid and disconnect and go back to the natural ways. So what is your take on how we can integrate with technology, which is the way that the mainstream world is heading, without giving up, levels of our freedom and consciousness to it?
See, the problem is people are always looking at extremes. One wants to become a robo by themselves, they want to become robotic. Somebody else wants to reject everything and have a hermit's life. These are two extremes. These two things are happening either by overly being attracted to something or rejecting something completely. Has technology made our lives physical life? The experience of our life cannot become better because of technology. But the physical comfort and our ability to function in the world, has it empowered us? Definitely, in a phenomenal way, all right? In an unimaginable way it is done. See, you're in Miami, I'm here in southern India, we are even talking. If we did this 100 years ago, you know what people would call us? Maybe I'm God and you are my angel or something.
Yeah, so to be telepathic.
Yes, much more than that. If you can see each other and talk to each other, that was the end of it. All right.
We'd be burnt at the stake.
Yeah, we just got this technology little late. See, suppose you and me got this technology 100 years before everybody else, or you could have claimed you're God and people would have believed you. I'm saying that is the level of empowerment we have. So let's not crib about it, nor should we exaggerate this thinking that technology is going to fix everything. Technology is not going to fix everything. Technology is going to empower us in such a way that many things that we were doing with much hardship, we can do it easy, all right? We can do it so easy that today anything that you want is at our fingertips. This is fantastic. So when everything that you want happens by the machine, today there is artificial intelligence and I've been people are inviting me to these artificial intelligence conferences. I asked them, why are you guys inviting me to these conferences? I am not an artificial intelligence. I'm as natural as it can be. They say, no, the thing is, these are all academics talking to me and saying, if this artificial intelligence take over, what will we do? We won't have jobs, that's what they are saying. I said, no problem for me, if artificial intelligence takes over, I will have too many things to do. Because it's a great thing if machines can do all the physical work. Isn't it fantastic? Right now, all the physical work, suppose you had to dig, take a crowbar and a spade and dig, how much time it would take. Today machine is doing it, isn't everybody happy? I'm sure at that time the laborers thought, oh, what will I do? My job will go because of this machine. Now people who are doing mental work are having the same insecurity. If all the mental and intellectual work, a professor reads 10 books and assimilates and tells his students, now a computer can read 1,000,000 books and tell the students something far more enriching. So they're afraid our jobs will go. I'm so glad that these jobs will go, because for too long, idiots who can read a book have been acting like they're the agents of God. If they can read one book, see, it's like this. If you read 100 books, you become a scholar. If you read 10 books, you become a school teacher. If you read one book, you become the agent of God. So, you become God's representative on the planet. So this has been going on for too long. Now your phone can repeat all the scriptures on the planet effortlessly, all right? It's really good. If all the physical and psychological work that you're doing, intellectual work that you're doing are done by the machines, I think there is enormous room for human beings to focus on consciousness. The problem all these millenniums of human existence has been, even if you want to sit and meditate, where can you do? Every day in the morning you have to go to the river and fetch water and chop wood and do this and do that. By the time you're done, you're all half dead, all right? Today, you can wake up and press a few buttons and everything happens. Now you can do whatever you wish to do with yourself. I think this is a fantastic time, and better time could come now in the next few years, if only if we manage a few things well, that we don't let these things go out of hand and we don't let very convoluted minds use technology to destroy us in so many different ways, because technology doesn't have a mind of its own, it can do anything. You can direct it whichever way you want. Technology can become a war machine, technology can become a life-saving process. So, I only hope that the right kind of people handle the technology. And also, the important thing is that we should not misunderstand technology as just because it does things that you do. See, for example, you want to load a ship. I was recently in a port, I was just seeing, I remember in India, in '60s, when men were loading the trucks, the ships, they would take 24 to 28 days to load one ship with cargo. Today, it is done in some 12 to 13 hours. Large ships, the ships are 10 times bigger than what they were at that time. But still, loading, unloading happens in anywhere between 12 to 18 hours because the machines are doing it. Aren't we glad? So similarly, if our intellectual struggles and intellectual labor is done by machines, it's even better. This means a human being is free. When a human being is free, if the necessary guidance is there, consciousness will rise. Otherwise, human beings will go into states of intoxication and all kinds of devious ways of somehow to beat their boredom and above all to avoid themselves. So, the drugs and alcohol are rising in their usage all over the world simply because there is less and less work to do. Machines are doing the work, so many things are happening. It's very important when human hands are free, consciousness should be really up. Then it's a fantastic world, absolutely dream world. When our hands are free, we have nothing to do, but our consciousness is risen, we will do something which is not physical in nature, which is significant to the entire cosmos.
I love that. And what I'm really hearing is it just depends on our level of consciousness. We could take the technology
Absolutely.
taking over and use it to numb out, or we can take that extra space to develop and to continue to solve the world's problems that technology cannot solve, like spreading love and compassion. Do you feel we'll get to this place that there's a set universal income and people don't have to work and can completely devote themselves to creativity, spirituality, etc.?
Well, that is an utopian idea, but it could happen. So will we be meditative, will we be full of love and joy and blissfulness, or will we be drugged out, is a choice that we have.
The
So
red pill or
culturing this
blue pill?
will we culture this generation in the right direction, that's what is important. As a part of this, we are launching what is called as Conscious Planet. Rose, you must be a part of this.
Absolutely.
Conscious Planet.
I would
Thank
love
you
to
very
be.
much.
Thank you so much for sharing this space and your wisdom with us today. We're so grateful.
If you can bloom in a desert, what is the problem?
Exactly.
Everywhere it's fine.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, wonderful.